Now we're going to talk about the potential of Bitcoin. Why has Bitcoin had such an emergence in recent years is that during the evolution of the internet, there has been no reserve payment system. That means there's no one bit default currency that everyone goes to. So in the wider world, people pay on their credit cards. So the default merchants there are either MasterCard or Visa, American Express, Diners Clubs, I suppose, in some countries. But on the internet, there's no one default payment system that is replicated across every single currency everyone can use in any country. Yeah, and this is what the idea behind Bitcoin is to be the reserve currency of the internet. Yeah, so this is the momentum building behind that, is because I want to send money from the UK to America. I want to send money from the UK to India. Yeah, if I was to do that by the conventional banking system or by using other merchants such as PayPal or other payment processors, then they're going to take a huge cut in terms of their commissions. They're going to take a huge cut in terms of the spread on the difference in currencies and the exchange you'll get. So with Bitcoin, the possibility here is you can send Bitcoin to another member of the public or another business miles and miles away, and they'll receive the money instantly. The ledger of that transaction will be updated instantly, and then there will be a tiny fraction of a Bitcoin commission, which is very, very small compared to conventional payment processors. So that's why as a default currency it's gaining growth and momentum. Second reason is it's still in its infancy. So the man on the street's probably heard a few news headlines about Bitcoin probably a couple of years ago when it took off from $10 and all the way up to $1,200, but it's still not got mass market saturation, and that's what you're looking for. So when everyone knows Bitcoin and starting to become more familiar with it, and a big merchant perhaps starts to take it, such as Amazon or eBay, then the man on the street will start using it. So at this point in time, it's the growth curve of Bitcoin is still very limited because of it's only kind of geeks and very technical people who are actually using it. So once it gets mass market saturation, it will still be a market leader, and the growth will still continue. If you imagine things like Facebook back in the day, they had a few 100,000 users to start off, but then the virality of the product gained such momentum that everyone's on Facebook these days. There's 1 billion people on Facebook, and everyone uses it. So this is the same scenario with Bitcoin. Only a handful of people, the initial pioneers of the product, start off using it, and then beyond that, it becomes rapidly growing, and it will become a market standard. Another reason is because of it's not a fiat currency. That means that the supply of Bitcoins is limited to 21 million coins. Now, if you compare fiat currencies, things like the dollar, the pound, the yen, the euro, these currencies aren't pegged to any particular gold standard like they used to be. So you can print money as a central bank infinitely. So if you're printing money infinitely, that means the value of that money becomes less and less. Yeah, hence you'll get things like, inflation and stuff like that. So, for instance, in the world, the level of gold is fixed. You can't produce more gold because gold is a natural resource, and that's that. You can't endlessly print something or create it out of nothing. And this is the same with Bitcoin. That's why Bitcoin has often been called the Gold 2 standard, because Bitcoin will replicate what the gold market is, but in an online sense. So with this in mind, in terms of the price, because Bitcoin is fixed at 21 million coins, that means you imagine that 21 million coins are out there, and it has to deal with 6 billion people in the world doing transactions in bitcoins. So you can imagine the value of the bitcoins will go up rapidly once it becomes a market standard. So that compares the value of the dollars in circulation to that of Bitcoin. That's why it's on this slide. So there's been recent reports by a few central banks, but particularly Bank of America, and they did a survey based on a lot of factors on Bitcoin, such as market take-up, the number of business to consumer, business to business transactions and things like that. And they come up with a fair value of Bitcoin of $1,300, which today's price is around $265. Bitcoin has been up to $1,200. So the potential even today, if that's a very small standard, is, a 400% return, for instance, yeah? So, even if you just buy a coin today and hold that coin, the chances are, if the experts are right, of course, that there's a lot of inflation due in the future on this particular concept. However, these guys, you might remember them from the Facebook days, think it's worth $40,000 a coin. These are the Winklevoss twins, or commonly known the Winklevi, whatever you call them. Yeah, they invested in Bitcoin when it was $10, and they had aspirations to create a market traded fund for Bitcoin, so they could liberate the Bitcoin to the investment market, so it could get investors or banks investing in Bitcoin funds without the problems of directly owning Bitcoin or buying Bitcoin or filling their wallets with Bitcoin themselves. That they think on a small bull market scenario that each Bitcoin could be worth $40,000 a coin. That is the potential of Bitcoin. So these guys are pretty smart. They know what they're doing. That they're one of the early sort of inventors of Facebook, and then they had that legal case with the Mark Zuckerberg, the owner, and they got settled with, and then they've come up with this Bitcoin product. So obviously they're talking up their own book, but why would they be involved in something that wouldn't be that successful? So they're talking 40,000. Bank of America are talking 1,300. Who knows? Maybe somewhere in between. But what it does show is that no one is predicting it's worth zero, or so the chances are it's worth a punt. What have you got to lose? Have a few coins where the price is a bit depressed, and see how they go in the future.